Hello everyone and welcome to the MusicMaster webinar. My name is Jill Sorensen. I am the Product Support Manager here at MusicMaster. Before we get underway with our topic today, which is Tech Talk, so if you don't have your technical people in the room, you might want to run down the hall quick and get them, because this session is specifically designed for them. Just a couple of reminders about the webinar. Everyone is in listen-only mode, but if you do have any questions, on that GoToWebinar panel that you have on your screen, there is a question box. You can go ahead and type your questions into that box, and we will be answering those throughout the webinar. Also, the session is being recorded, so if you can't run down the hall and get your tech person, you can let them know that it will be up on our website later today and will be available for viewing at that point for anyone else on your team who'd like to watch it. Also would encourage you to head to our website to register for the other webinars that we have posted, and we'll be adding some new ones to that list soon, and I'll be talking more about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks once we finish with our Tech Talk today. And doing that presentation for us, Drew Bennett.
Thank you very much, Jill. This webinar, is going to focus on some tools and tips for the IT specialist in your building. Or your engineer. So in today's webinar, we're going to cover sections of the software, some secondary modules like the Export Designer, and some areas of interest that are going to arm you with the tools to connect MusicMaster to automation, to set up audio, to modify pathing, and some general tech reference. So we're going to start with checking out the software here. And we'll start with the basics. You want to find system info to make sure that the installation was done correctly. If you've got an installation issue, in rare cases, certainly system information is going to give you a good idea of what happened. And a lot of times we like to see that if you've called us with, with an issue with the system. So to find that, you're going to go to Help and System Information. And so that's what it looks like. So we like to see green faces here. And if you see anything that's a yellow or a red face, that's going to alert you that we need to address that. So double check for the green faces during the installation. And then you can choose Copy to Clipboard down here at the bottom to copy full system information. And then you can paste that into Notepad. So many times we're going to ask for that. If there's an issue with installation, we want to see that information. That's what you'll do. You'll copy the clipboard. We also like to see a screenshot of the green faces if you want to send that along. So in the rare case that you have an issue like that, that's what you can do to help us out when you're sending over that stuff and to look at it yourself. Finding the version number and checking for updates is also something that you'll hear us ask you when you call with an issue. And to find the version number and or service release for your software, you're going to choose Help and About MusicMaster. And so here I've got version 4.0 SR15.0. So that's our SR15.0, and that's a beta version that I've got on my system right now. But that's what you're looking at. So an example might be 4.0 SR15 for you right now, where 4.0 is the version number and SR15 is the 15th service release for that version. To check for an updated version, you're going to Help and check for update. And you'll use the wizard to go and check for an update. And it'll let you know if you've got a version that you can update to. And sometimes, or many times, most of the time, we're going to tell you that in the newsletter. So if you get the newsletter, just read that, and we'll let you know when there's a new version out. So Help and check for updates to find out if there's an updated version. Use the wizard for that. We've got the Help section here with Help and Contents, Index, and Search. And one thing that I want to show you that's specific for you is technical reference. Inside technical reference, you're going to find things like command line options. Those are things that you can use when you want to modify a shortcut. Definition files, those are going to be things like reconciliation, external library synchronization, and a few other things like HTML export. And then you can also look at macros. To be used to, for dates and here. And this is where you can find, the ways to path to the data after you've opened the software. So if you open the software from the shortcut, it'll open the software first, and then it'll open the data for you. And so there's all sorts of switches in here that you can look at and use if you need to. Definition files exist in this section, and this is where we get into some utilities that MusicMaster can use with the automation system. You've got external library synchronization, which is going to go to the automation system and import new songs that have been entered into the automation system that you don't have in MusicMaster. The HTML export can export the playlist to the web or export to a template that you would upload to the web. Reconciliation is going to talk to the automation system and find out what happened on the air and make any changes that it needs to make in MusicMaster. And then traffic merge typically talks to the traffic software and brings traffic into MusicMaster so that you can export that as one file to the automation system. So in each of these sections, you're going to find information on how to build these and why they're commonly used. Now, I will say this. Typically, we're going to have the kind of definition file on hand for you that you need. So if it's a library import for Scott Studios, it's a good idea to call your music scheduling consultant and ask them to help you set that up. You'd need some pathing information, and we can help you with that, and I'll even show you how to put that into the definition file later on. But it's always a good idea to call your music scheduling consultant and have them assist you with that. But you can build them yourselves, and here's the information in this help section, which basically shows you how to build each section and then what an example would look like. All right, so we've got macros down here, and you can look at datetime macros, some database query macros, and I think what you might be concerned with most are file name macros. And when you're typing a file name macro into something like export to automation, that's going to allow it just to change the date as the date appears in the calendar so that you don't have to name the file every day. And that's what a date macro is going to do, or a file name macro rather. So when you come in here, you can look and see that at D1 is going to export the day of the month as a 2-digit number. And if that's what you need for your file name, then that's what you'll type in to a file name field. So technical reference there for you with definition files, some information on any files that you can explore, and definitely macros that you might be using. The other thing I want to show you in help here is troubleshooting. And they've put in several sections, 7 sections or so, of some common issues that a programmer might see with the database. And so those common sections here under troubleshooting will show you flowcharts. So you can identify the situation and double check and make sure it's not in troubleshooting, and use that flowchart to find what you need and maybe get an answer. If you get past the flowchart, obviously call us and we'll take a look at it and get you squared away. Inside the database, we've got a utility called Purge. And what Purge does is it re-indexes a database. So it's akin to defragging your hard drive. And it takes out any errant characters and crunches down your data and re-indexes that and makes it more manageable. I recommend doing it when you think about it once a week at least. And basically what it's going to do is just re-index the sync for us. So if I hit yes, it's going to go down and show me in the left-hand corner on later versions that it's purging deleted songs from the database and so on. It even tells me the percentage of reduction that I have. And that's going to, in some cases, speed up the data. And it's going to take care of any sort of errant errors that you might experience. So good idea to just run tools in Purge once a week or when you think about it. It also helps in making the data smaller so that you can send it through email if it gets too large and it needs to be reduced. So tools in Purge for that. Dataset security is available in tools and options. And when the MusicMaster options screen pops up, you'll come down to dataset security. And this is where you can enable this, and you can see anybody that's got a username and where they, what time they've entered into the data. Down here in users and rights, you can create profiles for your jocks or for your programmers. And so you can choose create user here, and then give yourself a name and a password. I can make this an administrator, which is basically going to give this user access to every section of the software. And I can also uncheck sections of the software that I don't want this user to be able to edit or modify. So if I've got an intern that adds songs into the database, then I can really only let that person add songs. And the rest of these I can uncheck. So you can really set some good permissions here for data security. When you're done, you'll choose Apply and OK. And then you can come back to Tools and Options and go to Dataset Security and enable that security. So that's how to enable dataset security. Cloning databases are typically used when we use them a lot when we have labs or testing grounds. We've got a set of data that we like to have on the air and it's working, but we want to try some new things, maybe some new rules. And cloning a database and creating a sort of a lab is something that we see a lot of programmers do. And when they ask you to do that, it's very simple. You'll just choose File and Open Data Set, and you'll see the data that you've got listed in your root folder, wherever you've got the data. So you'll highlight the data that you want. I've already got one that I've created here. But you can highlight the data that you want and choose Clone. And then just rename it. MusicMaster clones the data, and you can highlight that and choose Open, and then you've got an exact clone of the data. So that's how you clone data. Best served, I think, when you're using labs, when you're testing new rules and things like that. We had some audio questions in an audio webinar on April 15th. Aaron Taylor is one of our music scheduling consultants. I think he did a great job on his audio webinar. And you can access that at mmwin.com and find the webinar button there and go and listen to that. He got into some in-depth stuff with audio and some other things. So I really recommend that you go and listen to that when you can. But I'm going to show you some basic audio setup here. And to get there, you'll go to Tools and Options again. And you'll choose Audio File Options. Now I've done a really, really simple setup here. I've chosen my audio file name location is going to be this path. All of my audio is in a folder called Disk 13. And so I've chosen C:\download \audio \disk 13. And then I've got this macro here called @field, and then I've got a field number 116. And I'm going to hit cancel and show you what that is. Dataset library and fields will show you the list of fields in the database. And if I come down to 116, I know that's my file name, and that's where I've typed the file name for the audio. in that field for each song. So I've located the field number, and I can go back to Tools and Options. And I can say, okay, I want to go C:\download back to, all the way down to disk 13. And then in the field for the song, go and look at field 116 and include that in the path. And so that's going to go and play my audio. And then you can come to any song in the database. You can choose View, Audio Player, or you can choose F12 to play the audio. And then play that. So that's the basics on setting up audio. Certainly, you know, I'd really recommend that you listen to Aaron's webinar. He got really in depth with it and shows some really good tools and tips. Installing data on a new machine is probably a question I get every day. The software should be installed on the new machine first. And then what you'll do is you'll go to a workstation with the data on it. You'll take a backup from the other workstation, and you'll put the zip file, which is the backup. It's just the database zipped up, I think, on the desktop of the workstation that you're installing it upon. And then you'll manually unzip the file and locate the data inside. So I'm not going to show you that. Each zip extractor is different. Sometimes Windows will just open up a window for you and show you what's inside, and you can move that file. But you'll move that to the root folder, C:\MN, or you'll move that to the place on the network where you keep your data. So the first time you install it, manually do that, and then you can begin the backup process and the restore process between two workstations. So backup and restore. You'll go to Tools and Backup for that. Performing a standard backup is going to put the backup in the same place as the data, in the root folder, typically at C:\MN. And it'll be the name of the database .zip. Okay? So if you perform a standard backup, that's where that goes. You can also tell MusicMaster to make a backup in a specific location, like the desktop. Typically I'll do a desktop backup profile because it's an easy way to make a backup and quickly send it through email. And to do that, you'll choose Create, and up here you've got an untitled profile name. And I would call this something that indicates where it's going. You've got compression, which you can change if you'd like, and compress that a little bit more. Level 5's the defaults. You can password protect this zip file. You can also include definition files if you'd like. Just choose yes, and it'll basically take all the def files that you've got in that folder and include that in the backup. The backup file name is the most important thing here because this is where you're telling it where to go. And so if I go up and choose desktop here, then that's where it's going to go to my desktop. A file name prompt can also be used, and that's where you can give it a unique file name every time you back up, like the dates if you're going to archive it that way. Once you hit OK, you'll get your custom backup profile, and you'll be able to highlight that and perform a custom backup here. So that's how you perform backups. And now once you've performed a backup and taken it to another workstation, you can use the Tools and Restore process. And so Tools and Restore, and then you can choose the file that you've got. And I've backed up to the desktop, so I could choose that and open it and then restore the selected file. And so that's how you move backups and update software or databases from one workstation to the other. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the Export Designer. It has a lot to do with exporting to automations or exporting to automation systems, or exporting your library to a text file. So give me a second while this comes up. All right, So this is what the export designer looks like when you open it. You can get to it by going to All Programs in Windows and finding MusicMaster and finding the MusicMaster export designer from that menu. And when it opens up, it's going to ask you what database you'd like to open. And so I'm going to open a classic rock database here. And so I've got an export design selection screen. I've got schedule export here, and I've got library export. So the schedule export is going to export to the automation system. The library export is going to be the design that exports a library from something like library maintenance. And sometimes you won't have a library export. You can make them when you want to export to a text file, obviously. Some automation systems require it. I know DCS Maestro likes to have a library export so that they can complete title information and things like that. I think what every database is going to have, though, is a schedule export. And I've got several export designs in here, but I'll show you what a new one looks like. I would choose schedule export here and make sure that's chosen, and then I would choose new. I'm going to give it a design name. And then I'm going to choose if it's a delimited file, meaning it's separated by a character like a pipe or a comma, or a fixed length ASCII text file. And typically you'll see fixed length. So you'll choose OK, and you'll get a blank design. So on the left-hand side, I've got the different sections of the file. You know, MusicMaster is going to export a song, and so this is what the design of the song is going to look like. The information in here, in the middle. This is what the song is going to look like. Break text is really reserved for log notes. So if you type a log note into the database that's going to talk to Scott Studios and go play a certain file, then this is the design that it's going to use when it exports over to the automation system or over to the file. Spot would export traffic spots. Traffic merge is a little different. It'll export the traffic merge line. And then you've got unscheduled, and you've got some things that might be a part of the file itself, the day header or the file header at the top, the information at the top of the file. That'll be a part of the export design. But typically when you come in here, you're going to be looking at song. You're basically going to look at the automation system documentation that you've got, and they're going to show you the kind of file that they're going to look at, that they're going to read when they import that file from the scheduler to the automation system. And so you want to replicate that. And it's very easy. You just choose the field here that you want to begin with. Typically it's airtime. And you'll have some field properties over here on the right. Position 1 is where I'm starting here with this field. I happen to know that the length is 8 for airtime, so I could put an 8 in here. Or I could have left it at 0, and it'll go ahead and export the airtime anyway. The next thing might be a spacer, and so you're just going to pull down a spacer, which puts spaces in between information, and give it the length that it needs to be. Something like 5. It just depends on what the file needs to look like. And you'll continue down building this line with artist information, for instance. And you can give this a length, whatever it needs to be. And then another spacer. So these are the basics of building a design in the export designer. And it's the same process for the library export as well. And so once you're done building this line, you can take a look at it up here to make sure that all of this information is going to fall in the right place. If title is supposed to come in at position 79 of the file, then you know you've done it correctly. You can also find that position information here. And then you would go and choose break and build a design around break with airtime and break text and so on. So I know this is the basics of building an export design. Certainly your music scheduling consultant's going to have generic or standard files rather that automation systems use. And if you do a conversion with us, your export design will be included and working when you get it. So if you need a new export design, I know a lot of us are changing automation systems right now. You can certainly call us and we'll assist you with making that transition and getting a new export design in there. But that's the export designer and how to create a design within that. And again, that's start in all programs, find MusicMaster in your menu, and then choose MusicMaster Export Designer. Creating an export design, then you'll want to test it with the automation software. And you'll need to create a path so that MusicMaster knows where to send that file. And a lot of your programmers use this every day, but to export to the automation system, the easiest way is to choose this icon here, the datebook icon. And you'll choose the export to automation, and then choose the correct date, and hit OK. So I've got an export design that goes to a MusicMaster piece of software that we have called WaveMaster. Typically, you're going to see something like Scott Studios or NextGen or DCS or the automation system that you use. Some of you will have more than one export to audio, more than one export, and you need to make sure that the export design is highlighted and checked off. If one of them is highlighted and the other one's checked off, it won't export correctly. So just like the rule of thumb is that you need to have these highlighted and checked off. Down at the bottom, I've got my export path, and I can change that if I'd like to just by typing that in. Or you can choose the three-dotted box here and go and serve to that location. I've got the export file name, and I've chosen to call this playlist, and then I've got @D2, and we talked about those date macros earlier. And @D2 is going to give me the alphanumeric, 3 alphanumeric day there. So WED is the example, and then .asc. So that's where you'll type in your export file name. And once you're ready, you'll hit OK. It'll go over to the automation system. You'll pick it up and test that. If you have any problems with it, call us, and we can assist you with any sort of issues with, with the automation system not reading that file. Typically, I think the questions that we would get or the issues that we would get is when the date macro is wrong, and it's looking for a 4-digit year, and you've got a 2-digit year. So keep that in mind. Desktop shortcuts. We talked about command line options earlier in the session, and desktop shortcuts are something that you can modify for your programmer so that you will open up the software and then you'll open up the database, and he won't have to surf to that or path to that. And I'll just go over how to do it. You'll just right-click on the shortcut and choose Properties. When that opens up, you'll see a command line, and inside of that, you'll see the path. It's c:/mmwin/musicmaster.exe. And after the exe, you'll type a space, and then you can type the full path to the MMD file, which is your database. So if the data exists on a network in a folder called mmwin, on a drive called in, Then after the exe, you would type a space and then n:\mmwin/ and then whatever the database is called, .mmd. If there are spaces in that path, if you've got spaces in folders, then put that path around quotes. Surround the path with quotes, and it'll open just fine. So that's how you make a change to the shortcut. A few of you may use red network keys, and I want to talk about that for a minute because they're fairly easy to set up. They come with instructions. If you're considering using a red network key, they're pretty great. You can put them on one server and then allow any workstation to access the key as long as it's got a free license. So a red network key might have 5 licenses, and that means 5 people can be on MusicMaster in any part of the building at once. To install the license manager, you'll put that on the server where you're going to put the red network key. We recommend installing the license manager as a service. You'll insert the red key into the workstation after you've installed, and then you'll install a file called nethasp.ini. And you'll put that into each workstation's root folder, each workstation's mmwin folder. And then you can launch MusicMaster from one of those workstations, and the nethasp.ini file will find the key over the network and then allow the software to be opened. So you don't have to have 5 keys. You can have one red key, and then use the nethasp.ini file to open up MusicMaster wherever you happen to be in the building. And the last thing I want to talk about today is getting registered on the website. And I'll show you the website. Let me open that up here. There's a wealth of information on the website, and good idea to talk to your programmers and let them know, but you're going to find this helpful too. You'll go to support and customer login. And if you haven't signed up for the Client Support Center, I recommend that you do that because you can come in and download the latest version. I know sometimes you'll be out on the field, you won't have the disk with you, and you can certainly use the site to download the latest version. Once you get in here, you can read the latest newsletter. You can find out when the latest version was released. On the left-hand side, you'll find downloads for MusicMaster for Windows. And you can read any release note here and then find the latest version. You can also download some supplemental files and drivers. Those would be NetHasp files or PDF creators and things that we've got. But any version can be downloaded from here. So if you've got version 3, then you can download version 3. Training videos are available on the site as well. This is where you can send your programmers, or you can watch these yourself. I don't think any of them are less than or more than 5 minutes long. They're grouped by topic, and they deal with certain functions of the software. So you can really come in and watch these on your own time and learn more about some of the functionality inside MusicMaster. Great resource for new users and people looking to just gain more knowledge about MusicMaster. User guides are available here too. And the other thing that you can do is come to the home page. And I've started to tell everybody that there's a big old button here on the home page for webinars. You can come here and look at webinars that you can register for. In fact, we've got a great one next week from 0 to database in 60 minutes or less, and we'll continue our webinars. You'll find more scheduled webinars here pretty soon. And you can also come here and look at past webinars and download those and watch them. We talked about errands on the 15th, using audio files in MusicMaster, and you can just click that and download and watch it. We've done a lot of them. We started out with 3 hours, 3-hour-long webinars, and we've gone down to 1-hour-long webinars where we focus on something specific. So I'd really recommend that you send your programmers here or come here yourself and check those out. So I hope it was educational a little bit today. If you have any questions on anything that we covered, or if you want to get more in-depth with it, certainly call your music scheduling consultant. And with that said, I'm going to pass it back to Jill.
Thank you very much, Drew. I appreciate it. Probably a big thing to remind everyone is that we just touched upon the basics from the technical standpoint. We certainly wanted to give you just sort of that basic understanding, but we know sometimes those questions can be very technical or very specific to your application. Please do not hesitate to contact your music scheduling consultant directly to address any kinds of issues that you're having with the software. We are here to help you. You also certainly, if you do not have a MusicMaster music scheduling consultant, you can always email us at support@mmwin.com, and we can help you that way as well. As Drew mentioned, coming up next week, we are going to take you from zero to a database in 60 minutes or less. Why? Because we know sometimes you have to flip the format quick, or you just have to get a new station on the air, especially with all these HD channels. How can you do that fast and efficiently with what you already have available to you? That's the process we're going to take you through next week. After that, we're going to go back to the rule tree by request to look more in depth at what is going on there and dig a little deeper and give you some more tools to help you understand how that rule tree works and how you can take advantage of it. And speaking of topics, you know, if you've got a topic that you're interested in and you don't see it on the past webinar archive list or coming up on a future webinar, drop us a note. support@mmwin.com. We'd love to hear from you and what your ideas are. And matter of fact, we've already done some things that have been suggested by people just like yourself. So keep that in mind as well. We would like to make these as relevant to you as we most possibly can, and so your input is appreciated. My name is Jill Sorensen. I'm the Product Support Manager. If you have any questions about the webinars or need more assistance, feel free to contact me as well. All of our email addresses are the same. It's the first name @mmwin.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to you joining us in the future.